Hello, I'm Dwight Marlowe, and thank you for joining us today. We pray that this program will be a blessing to you. So now, please enjoy today's witness. Hello, I'm Dwight Marlowe, and I want to welcome everyone to tonight's program. Tonight we're in Elizabethon, Tennessee, with a good friend of ours, Angie Odom. We've filmed Angie 3 or 4 times on different projects, and we do a lot of work with her in her TLC ministry. She's the one that helps us with our feeding program in Bristol in the summer. So this does tremendous work, and we have talked several times with her about drug addiction. She has a particular problem, not so much a problem, but a situation that developed in her life a few years ago that's just really become an incredible story. Angie has received a lot of almost publicity about this, a lot of contacts about some of the work that she does. But tonight we wanted to do a serious thing because it certainly touched my life through my daughter, just the risk of drugs. And Angie and I talked about this a couple of months or so ago about doing something that would maybe be a little more hard-hitting than some of the things we do. And so Angie does such a great job of telling this particular story because it's so close to her. So I'm just going to turn it over to you, lady.
Okay. Well, thank you for allowing the opportunity for this to be shared with other people, because I think the heart that I have is when you live it and you see it and you see how real it is, you just wish you could just get into the minds of all of our young people in these families to say, this could be you. This could, it could be all of us. Just the grace of God, it's not. But this has been so heartwarming in our family just because, now we have a little one, and I'll tell more about that this is her birth parent story.
Right.
But more than anything, the birth parent was once a young little girl that I knew. And that's what makes it so heart-wrenching to see the potential of what this young lady could have been, and then now where she's at today. So I'll take you back a little bit in the story. Of course, here at Abortion Alternatives, or now we're called the TLC Community Center, we would go into the group homes of the local group home where there's some girls with the state, if they'd been in trouble and stuff, they had to live there. And this young lady had lived at the group home. And we would go on Friday nights and watch TV and do some little things with them, activities. And I'd take my oldest daughter with me. And that's where I met this young lady. And this young lady, she would just desire to be with us so much as far as our attention and everything. So I would, of course, do all that I could to talk to them and be their friend, and they'd come and volunteer with us and stuff like that. So while we were, after we kind of developed more of a relationship with her coming to our center to volunteer and so forth, she, then it was time for her to get out. And I had learned a little bit about her story then. Her dad had died when she was 8 years old. Goodness. And he was a lot older than her mom, and she had started drugs and everything probably about the age of 13. She had started huffing gasoline and doing that kind of thing. Not a really good structure in her family life. And it had led her to being in jail and led her to a lot of different things, that the consequences was in and out of different types of juvenile homes and stuff. So we talked about a lot of this and about choices, and the group home she was at had helped save some of her money. And one of her things that she wanted to do was get a car, it was that turning 18, getting a car, getting her freedom and stuff like that. So she was able then to, when she got out, the first thing she did was purchase a car. Sadly, the rules at that time of a group home was they weren't allowed to contact them for 6 months.
After they left? So
after they left.
Was like a silent
And so this is the only family that she had.
Yeah, no real support.
Yeah, the only family that she had was this group home. So here she's going out with lots of money, and the people that she really, that really didn't care about her the whole time she was in, all of a sudden started caring about her again.
Goodness.
And you know what type of influence that was. That was the influence of wanting her money, wanting the rides, and these were the influences of the people that once did the drugs and alcohol and stuff like that. So she got the car. Within a few weeks, from my understanding of getting the car was crashed.
Oh, goodness.
You know, she had some DUI charges right off the bat. She, you know, it was just a lot at once. Freedom, money, cars, and all this. So I didn't see her for quite some time. But then, the next time that I did see her, she came with a smile on her face into our center, and she was like, I'm pregnant. And she's like, I need your help. And I was like, well, you know, let's sit down, let's talk. And
How old was she at that time?
Well, she was probably 19 and a half.
Okay.
I'm thinking, Lord, the time is, I know she's 30 now, and yeah, she was about 19 and a half.
Okay, an adult.
Because she was pregnant during that time, and that young man just turned 10, and she's 30, so yeah. So she was an adult, and so I committed that I would help her, and you try to do you can. You know, she admitted that, you know, there was some drugs back in her life, and, you know, the importance of how we shouldn't be doing them, and the pregnancy, not only for the baby, but for her too. And she started doing well. She was coming to her little classes, and it seemed, I mean, this is a young lady you couldn't help but love. She was a big smile. To me, she was a follower. She was a pleaser. You just couldn't help. She just always had this pleasant look on her face. I mean, I never seen her high, you know, and doing the drugs. So I only seen the good, you know, pleasant side of her. And until more halfway through that pregnancy, she started missing and not seeing her and stuff, and she just was gone. I didn't know where she was. Then I showed up to do one of her classes at her jail, which I would go into our jail and do. And there she stood in the cell block that day. And there I still see the grin on her face, like you're not going to believe this, Angie. You know, kind of story that she would be about
now she was pregnant?
Yes,
in
she was
jail.
pregnant.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Big and pregnant. Okay,
Really
her
pregnant.
last month was in the jail. And she told me, she's like, you've got to help me try to get married. You know, we love each other. We really want to get married. She said, we were on our way to get married when we got arrested.
Oh, got busted.
You know, and that's when we joked. Like, there's a sign, you know, you should get married.
Goodness.
And, but I didn't know what I could get worked out, but it was worth a try. And so I talked to our sheriff and talked to my pastor, and he went in and talked with her some, and so they allowed us to have a wedding in jail. You know, with this
If
little
anybody
room
could make
that
that
they call
work,
a chapel.
it would be you, Angie. You're the one person I know
and I
that
was
make
like,
that work.
what person? You know, you already have to remember you got married in jail. Let's take a white cake in. I remember taking these white plain sheet cakes and plastic spoons, you know, to cut the cake, and it was just one of those situations that, you know, it's just one of those. You chalk it up, the jailhouse wedding. And they did let him hug, which I didn't think they would, you know, at the end. But I had pictures of that day, and I still have those pictures. And she was just real smiling and happy. And I was glad, I hate to say, at least the last part of that pregnancy was in jail, to where it was more monitored as far as drugs and things like that was going on. So, so there she was in jail. Then it wasn't long. You know, I got word she was in labor. She was over at the hospital, and she had her little baby boy then. And I took this big, you know, at our center we always take mom baskets. So we took these big mom's baskets in with all these new things, and I have that picture of her sitting on that bed, just smiling and happy. And she was like, I'm going to do good. You know, I'm going to be clean. It was like something for her to love. That was hers. That she desired to feel loved and have a family. And I was hoping, you know, that would be the answer. And it was for a little while. And so she kept doing pretty good off and on, you know, until I think he was in his about around 3-ish when, or a little after the last time she called on the phone. And she said she was, you know, working a job in a nearby town, and could she come by and get some things? And she named off things. I was like, sure, you know, I'll gather this up. And I remember, you know, her telling me when I answered the phone that day who she was. Like, I'm so happy to hear from you, you know, but she never showed for those things. And so I didn't know where she was or what was going on. So all kinds of time went by. And little did I know that one day, sitting in this very room where we're sitting, her mom came in. And her mother said that she had met me before, and I couldn't place it. I didn't remember seeing her mom. She said, no, you would remember me. I was at the jail at a wedding. I knew immediately what person we're talking about because I've only had one jailhouse wedding in the 16 years so far. And I'm not saying it's going to be the last, but I pray it is. But so I knew immediately what client we're talking about. She said, you know, my daughter. She goes, I met you that day, but she said, the amazing part is why I'm here is I trust your family. She said, I trust your family because your mom and dad used to take me to church on a church bus. She said, you were 5 and never was quiet on the bus. You would sing the whole time. I thought, well, she knows me already, you know, because she was about 9. And she had a bunch of siblings. And she's like, yeah, they took me to church, but I always respected your parents. And she said, I knew that you could be the one to help me, and I knew you loved my daughter. And
now, your dad was a pastor.
Minister. He passed away when I was 16.
Oh, yeah.
It's so crazy to think that someone, when you plant the seed.
Oh, goodness. There's a sermon there, Angie.
I mean, when you plant the seed, little did I know when I was 5, because of the acts of kindness that my mom and dad showed through ministry and taking these kids to school and now knowing the grandma's life and stuff more, really what was going on in their home at that time, and loving on them, was planting the seed
Angie.
of a child that would be my own.
Goodness gracious.
That is just in itself.
Gracious,
I mean, and because of that, it's made a difference of my child's life.
Oh,
and
a God
what home
thing.
she's in.
A God thing.
Goodness. And so immediately, I was like, well, what can I do for you? And she had a car seat. You know, she had to get some things out of the car, and she left the car seat in here with me for a minute. It was cold, so the blanket was over the child, and so when she was getting more things, I'm uncovering it and seeing these big eyes pop up at me, and I was like, I wonder who you are. I was just sitting talking to her, and I thought, and I remember saying, you're really tiny, you're not grown in your skin yet, because she was all like wrinkly, how little babies are. Newborn. And I had no idea the story behind it. And at that point, I didn't even know who the birth mom was. She was asking about her daughter. I would have never dreamed, why wouldn't you know where her daughter was if this baby's here? Because it was so newborn. You would know where the mom's at. And so that's when the story started unfolding. That took a lot of unfolding over weeks and months. But basically, she had said to me, her daughter that I had helped before was in a very bad place, and that she had fled our area due to drugs. That people was after her. The day after she left the area, a day or two after, her home got shot up.
Goodness.
It was not a good thing.
No,
they were, it's what drugs do though, either, from snitching on the others or bad sales, whatever, owing people money, just fighting feud. It's a very dangerous life.
For sure.
And that's what she lived. And so she had fled the area and ended up in Florida, Pensacola, Florida. And that is where the story, I want to say, the whole story started again. From my understanding, she ran out of money and ended up living in a motel. And from what I have been told and talked to investigators now, from what they could put together, she was living with a pimp. She was prostituting.
Right.
And for her way of life and her drugs.
Right, yeah.
And during that time frame, that she's, now I just want you to know the grandmother that day, or the lady who was here, did not tell me all this information. If it had been, it would have been like so easy, because she didn't know all the details herself. I mean, she has a baby that she had went to Florida to pick up and said, I don't know where my daughter's at. And I was like, how do you not know where your daughter's at? So, I mean, that's when it was mainly the stuff about the overdose is all she could tell me. She didn't know where her daughter was at. And so that's why I'm saying it was very complicated to follow the story, because now I can tell you all that, of how it happened.
Right.
But when you're missing large pieces of a puzzle that's regarding the life of a baby and a missing mother, is very confusing.
Right.
So I know that particular day that she was in I helped her get insurance for the baby going. She needed $18 to send off for a birth certificate, which who knew that the day that I mailed it and sent it off, that by the time it ever came from Florida, this child was in my care. I was sending off the birth certificate of what we needed, you know.
Yourself,
So the next day after she had been here, you know, I went and set up a nursery at the grandma's house and hung things on her wall and decorated her room and even got some furniture for the grandmother, not knowing that all of this stuff the grandma was going to package up and send, you know, to my house. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
Now looking back, it seems even loopier than what it was, you know. But the biggest thing was, where is her birth mom? And so immediately I got on the phone to that hospital, and what had happened was the birth mom had overdosed on drugs at 8 weeks pregnant. She had known for 2 days that she was pregnant. And the only person that really knew that was her mom. So when she overdosed, they suspect that she left she knew she was pregnant, and then 2 days later she overdosed. They're suspecting that she laid for at least 4.5 hours without the right oxygen to the brain.
Yeah.
So without the right oxygen to the brain, the first thing that goes usually is your sight. And that's what they now say, has happened, is that her sight, went. And then as far as when they found her, when I say they found her, I spoke to the first response, or the dispatch and first response, that I've had the opportunity to later meet them and learn what happened. They believe that the person that called it in purposely gave the wrong address for a long time. For at least 30 or more minutes, they were just driving around in circles for an address that didn't even exist. And when they finally got there, they could hear her gasping over the dispatch, that they could hear the sounds in the background, knowing that if they didn't get there soon, this person would die.
Yeah, gasping.
And, they said she was throwing up bile and all this other stuff. It's, different signs they need to look for. When the first responders got there, her blood sugar was 11, which, with no more breathing that was going on, such shallow breaths, and that, it was just a God thing. It was just a God thing that at that moment they were able to intervene and make any kind of changes, in the direction of her life. So then she was placed on life support for about 2.5 months. They weaned her from that life support over, the end of the 2.5 months part. But all along, here she's still pregnant.
Yeah,
they kept thinking each day
baby.
and each week that she would miscarry this child. There's no way. With the drugs that they had to administer and do to get her stable, to when they started removing her from life support, you're sedated the whole time, when you're on that life support too. And when they started weaning her off of things, they found that there was so much of the types of when you wean from that, it caused seizures to start happening. And so they had to start giving her medications for that. So like with the different drugs that they used, everything that you read said that it would cause harm to the fetus or the baby or death. Right. So they were like, we have to do this for her, but we're sure, this baby might not continue. She'll miscarry and it will die. But that's not what happened. They kept doing ultrasounds, and they kept seeing the normal growth of a child. And I have looked up the different drugs, and the side effects, and it's amazing, of what it says can happen, and knowing that it didn't. And now through that pregnancy, she had many infections in the womb, C. diff, just other types of infections that would reoccur. And she had, didn't have enough amniotic fluid. And then there towards the end, the baby had to be born early because the cord got around the baby's neck. And so they had to do an emergency C-section. So when that C-section was done, you got to remember, this is a mother who's now left in what they call vegetative state, who's not able to see, who's there, but there's no response. Like the brain and the brain stem was damaged, so there's no response going on. that's given birth in C-section, and I have a picture of her being born and all these doctors lining up, and I just think, what were they thinking at that moment? Can you imagine what they're thinking? Like, what are we going to see, and how's this baby going to be?
How far in the term?
6 weeks early.
6 weeks early. Okay.
Yeah, but I just can't imagine what was going through their mind.
No.
And so I know that when the baby was born, she, had some breathing problems from what I've read on the record. So she had to be whisked away, into the NICU and have assistance, which she had to stay there for about 23 or 24 days due to detoxing from medical drugs and everything. But so when she was whisked away, they never connected. The birth mom and the baby never laid on one another, that kind of thing. Yeah. So 2 days after the C-section, the birth mom was sent from Florida back to her home state of Tennessee, because another state don't want to have to assume responsibility of that, medically. So her insurance really isn't approved for long-term nursing home yet, so it's like a low-end nursing home that will take you. So that's what had happened, and that's why her mother didn't know where she was. Is really, she wasn't there when the child was born. Mm-hmm. So within those 2 days, her daughter was shipped out, and there wasn't this communication of where.
Right.
And she wasn't back down there until she got a call, and the state of Florida said either someone come with the right papers for the child, or the Department of Children's Services of Florida is going to assume the child into their care. Mm. So she luckily got the right papers, and she did go and pick up the baby, and here we were, putting all this, I've just told you, kind of piecing it all together. So as soon as I had, sent the things off for her for the baby and set up a nursery in the grandmother's home, I had to just go find her. So when I called the state of Florida and talked to the hospital, they finally, after explaining, with HIPAA laws, that was hard, but having proof of who we were and all this, they told me where she was sent. And I found her about 3.5 hours from here in a tiny little town in a nursing home. So one of my friends, who or our board member's wife, she went with me. And that was just like the hardest drive. Mm. We went down one day and was staying all night, and I dreaded that next morning going in, just because I didn't know what to expect.
Yeah, really.
It's like I hear these stories, and I didn't know how to prepare myself of how to find the young smiling girl that I knew. And I don't think anything could have prepared me more. At that time I didn't know she was blind. I didn't know all of these medical things now, but that I know now. I didn't know it then. But I remember we pulled in, and I just took that deep breath, and I was like, God, please, help me through this and help me know what to do to help. Right. And walked down that hall, and I was about to turn in the curve to her room, and it was just like, I don't know, it was just like the sickest feeling that you can have.
Goodness.
You just don't know. I mean, This is a person that is young, and you're walking into a nursing home where you're seeing all these elderly people here, and you're imagining, why are they here? Why is this young person in this facility?
Right.
And because when she overdosed, she was 25. She was about to be 26 years old. She overdosed in the month of July, and she would have been 20. That was when she was 25. Her birthday was in September of that year. So this is young.
Right, really.
She's still 26 years old, at this point. So I walked in, and there were some mats on a floor, just like thin mats on a floor. And she was in a diaper, and at that time her gown wasn't on her. It was just wrapped all around her, where she had rolled back and forth in the floor. And they couldn't keep her in a bed because she would roll so much. You're not allowed to restrain anyone. And there was this noise back and forth. I mean, there was constant movement, constant noise.
Oh, goodness.
Of just a person miserable in their own body.
Goodness.
And I could hear a rattle. And while I was there, within no time that I was there, a nurse came in to feed her. And she was laying flat. And they just put fluid through her feeding tube.
Goodness.
They didn't raise her or do nothing, and I'm not medical, so I didn't know if that was okay or not. Which later I learned, no wonder she had a rattle. You're supposed to raise someone up, and leave them elevated when you're doing those feedings. And so immediately, the girl I was with, I was just so devastated. I was like, what am I to do? And I called one of my, just God puts the right people in your path.
Amen.
And I called a man who was over one of the larger nursing home chains, and I was like, what do I need to leave here with? I need to work on getting her moved. I don't know what else to do. And he told me the sheets and what to ask for, fact sheets, to get that I could come back and work on getting her moved. And that's what I started doing.
Mm-hmm.
So it broke my heart to have to leave her. I tried to talk to the nurses there. None knew any of her background. They just knew she was shipped in.
Now she's recovering from this C-section, right?
They knew she had a C-section scar,
right.
Healing. But there was nothing. They didn't know overdose. They didn't know anything. Nothing had followed her.
That's unbelievable, isn't it? That's just really
you would
to
think,
follow,
And, hormone changes everything that you still go through, whether you can express it or not. So I came back and immediately started doing the nursing home thing. I remember calling her mom in and her sister and set them down in here. And I said, where's the baby? And she's like, oh, somebody's watching her today. And somebody called while we were talking, and I remember hearing these men, and, I don't know who was watching the baby that day, but she said, it's just a lot on me I can't handle.
If you'd like to find out more about Angie's ministry work, you can contact her by phone at 423-543-4673 or by mail at TLC Community Center, 145 Judge Don Lewis Boulevard, Elizabethton, Tennessee, 37643. Angie does a lot with a little, so any support in time or money that you might be able to give to this bold and effective ministry would be greatly appreciated. We particularly encourage anyone who is feeling the call of God to get into this type of ministry in your own neighborhood to contact Angie. She is willing to help you get started to do God's work in saving the least among us. Thank you.